said there'll be no announcements of committee chairs today. Perhaps they would leave.
Right. Perhaps.
Is everybody get one of these?
Okay.
Grab this from you.
All right, you got that? Okay. Okay. Okay, all right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started. Thanks for coming. 2 weeks ago, when on election night, we had made some promises to the people of Minnesota, and they included that we were going to rein in spending, we were going to reform government, and this part that we're working on today is about reforming government. We're announcing our committee structure today. We'll be announcing committee chairs tomorrow. From the Senate point of view, we've reduced the number of committees from 25 to 16. And then we've worked very closely with the House. And so you're going to see the graphics over here represent the alignment, or perhaps the lack of alignment, between the DFL House and DFL Senate. This is the new committee structure and how the accounts and the committees will line up. So we're very excited. We think that this provides, we wanted to productively innovate to make government more user-friendly. That's a lot about what we talked about on the campaign trail. And so the first thing that we start with, of course, is committee structure. And I think that you're going to find it's not just streamlined. But it's going to allow us more time with our constituents, and it's going to make the process much more transparent. Additionally, there are some bit of savings. It's a little difficult to estimate at this point, but we're estimating in the Senate we'll save between $250,000 and $300,000. The reduction represents in the Senate a 36% reduction in committees. House?
Oh, sure. Well, thank you, Senator Koch. And I think what you see, not only from the chart, but from our actions within 2 weeks, as Senator Koch said, we have reformed government starting with ourselves. This is not something we're going to jump up and down and pat ourselves on the back about. This is what voters expected of us. This is what they demanded at on the election on November 2nd, that we get in and we start with ourselves first. Don't go to the programs. Don't go down to start deciding which government bureaucrats, quote unquote, we cut. But we're starting with ourselves. We streamline government. I mentioned the plate of spaghetti that is the committee structure now. Well, here you go. Take a look. To try to navigate that from left to right or side to side, good luck. And in some cases, it was set up that way so that it maybe would be advantage to some chairs or to some members. We set our structure up so it's an advantage to the taxpayers, to the voters, that their government is easier, more efficient, more effective. It is leaner so that when they come down here, it's easy for them to follow. We want them to be a part of their government. We want their government now to work for them, not the other way around. For those that actually come down to the Capitol and want to see their government in action, we think this structure over here lends to that. It's what the voters expected and demanded. We delivered within a very short amount of time, something that I think both Amy and I would say from our standpoint has been decades in coming, and we're not only on behalf of our caucuses, but on behalf of the taxpayers, looking to save some money and make government a little more efficient and, as Amy said, user-friendly to the voters and the taxpayers who actually fund us. So that's it. We're ready for questions.
The Senator talked about a reduction in committees from 25 to 16 in the Senate. Do you have a similar number in the House?
In the House, we went from 36, I think it was maybe even technically 38 to 40, down to 24 with policy and division. So not quite, roughly about 30-35%, depending on if you count all commissions. And
$1 billion savings? Is that
well, it depends on once we get into the $1 billion savings.
We wish we could do it that easily.
A little slow, but that, close to, if not more than at least $500,000 in savings.
How about oversight? When you eliminate committees, what do you do with the oversight that those committees may have provided?
Well, looking at the structure, all it means is that there's going to be one-stop shopping in a lot of cases. You don't have to go, try and find your way through here, whether it's an energy issue, an education issue. If you're a business owner and come and look at this org chart, you'd think that we were insane down here. You look over there and you can say if it's going to deal with taxes, I can see that there's in the tax committee in the House, there's a tax committee in the Senate. The oversight's going to be there, absolutely. It's just a matter of how efficiently we run the place so that you don't have to make 6 or 7 stops while you're down here. And from the other side, once the schedules get lined up, so the tax committee in the House doesn't meet the same time as tax committee in the Senate. And I know there are a few folks in the government relations industry that are going to be very happy to see that part as well.
We've also done a combining of some policy and finance committees. That's been a big step in this. And in reality, if you looked at a lot of the bills, policy and finance were so intertwined anyway. So it made a lot of sense, Cindy.
And the lack of the need to meet in a subdivision in the House committee, especially I was on Commerce for my whole time down here, to meet on a committee, then have it come up to the full committee a week later or the next full committee meeting to hear the same bill over again. What's the point? We have a Commerce Committee for that reason. Deal with the issues in the Commerce Committee. The bills, in some cases, didn't come up from the divisions. If they didn't warrant coming up to the full division back then they shouldn't have been in the subdivision either. So just get rid of all the subdivisions, have a couple of strong committees, and get through the process.
How many staff positions will be eliminated with this streamline?
Well, it's not a direct reduction because there was some overlap, let's say in the CA area for different committees, but there will be, we're still looking at those numbers, but potentially between 4 and 5 staff reductions in the Senate. I'm not sure if you've looked at the House numbers.
Yeah, I mean, and part of it depends on when we combine some of these policy and issue areas. Some of them, what we had done actually in the last session with our research staff, we had some researchers that were session onlys. So they would come into the research for an issue area. Then as the bills passed, as the policy went through, we could then have that issue absorbed back up into the full committee or the issue area, if it's environment and agriculture, can all be together. So we'll look at it. It is going to be a significant reduction, though.
What's significant? Double-digit staff gone, dozens?
Well, and part of it is our ability to ask our staff, we need you to handle a little bit more. We're asking you to do more, just like business owners have asked their staff. I think it will be double-digit, but we'll have a better number for you, and some of them may be full-time positions that are there but left open, that are left unfilled, so that if we have to go back, we need a little shock absorber. If we are going to have to cut our own budgets again after this budget cut, that we'll have that ability.
And Mary, I think this gives us a chance to talk about what we've framed as try to do a smooth and orderly transition. And speaking on the Senate side, I think by January 4th we'll be able to give you a better idea of head count and personnel. So today we talk about committee structure. Tomorrow, what most of the people in the room seem to be here for is committee chairs. We've met multiple times with Senator Bach and Senator Poggemiller. Senator Koch shared this structure with Senator Bach this morning. So we are working with the minority. We've got a fairly large move that has to take place between people in the state office building and people in the Capitol, so that we're literally boxing up offices and moving forward. The Secretary of the Senate is a huge hire. And then multiple people report to the Secretary of the Senate, so that's another stage, probably again after Thanksgiving. So we're going to take this one step at a time, and in the end, what you'll see is a streamlined Senate, a Senate that has fewer people in it and costs less money to the taxpayers. Are we going to balance the budget just on the Senate itself? No, but this is our first chance to streamline and cut some dollars, and we're going to do it.
Has the leadership made overtures to either of the governor's candidates regarding this restructuring and who might be the point man for whom ultimately after the election is resolved?
The short answer is no.
Regarding the question of oversight, though, and working with the Democrats and the minority, already they're concerned about this because they say that there will not be enough oversight. I'm quoting here, this is from Representative Thiessen. My fear is that Republicans will use their new structure to reward the anonymous corporations who helped pay for many of the seats in this election. End quote.
Thank you, Pat. And thank you, and
He's just waiting to get out.
and thank you, Representative Thiessen. You know, thinking again about oversight, if you have 5 committees that have oversight of a single topic, do you really have anyone that's accountable? Do you really have one place that is doing oversight? I think it's actually better that we are streamlined, that we have one committee to go to, one committee to go to for education, one committee to go to for transportation. It's going to be more transparent. Taxpayers and citizens of Minnesota are going to know where to go. So this is a once in a, at least in the Minnesota legislature, it's a once in a 3-decade opportunity. We got to draw up new committee structure, working with our members, working with the House. We haven't been able to do this before, so I am very proud of the product, and we'll let Representative Thiessen's political jabs fall to the side there, because again, we've got a lot of work to do between now and January 4th, and we're going to work with him. We're going to work with him.
On that, Speaker Zellers, can you talk about that, because that's in your chamber? It's specifically that comment that anonymous corporations will be rewarded with this structure.
And Majority Leader Dean would like to address it as well, but you know, that kind of cheap political shots are left, you know, pre-November 2nd. That's not the stuff. We're going to have plenty of This is exactly the type of oversight that we didn't have. You look at what's good luck following a bill going through this process. Their own members couldn't follow their bills. So if you're looking at oversight to make sure that the people's work is being done, that it's a fair and judicious process for whoever's carrying the bill, you don't create a plate of spaghetti like this. You streamline it over here. We've done that. We'll leave cheap political shots back in the campaign trail.
Are you trying to be a de facto unicameral legislature here, though? I mean,
No,
are you
I
trying
think
to take away the identity of the two?
I think kind of going back to what the question earlier, it should be no surprise to anyone that a group of people who campaigned on making government smaller and simpler has made government smaller and simpler. And that's the step that we've taken today. The transparency that you're going to see with the bills moving through, we're focusing on process today, because if we're going to have a good product, we have to have a good process. We've reformed that to make it simpler. And for folks who are watching at home, both with inside the building and for people outside the building, they're going to be able to see the process. It's going to be cleaner. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be cleaner, and it's going to be smoother, and it's going to be more transparent.
All this talk of streamlining here, are you guys assuring the people in this room that there won't be a special session?
Not all at once now.
Right.
No, I mean, we're not going to predict anything beyond. We're announcing our committee structure today. We'll announce our chairs tomorrow. You know, we're going to be more than willing to work with whomever the governor is. I'm not willing to give either one the nod either way. But and to your point, no, we're not working on unicameral. I mean, believe me, to get to that structure over there wasn't exactly like we were all in the room slapping each other on the back. I mean, there's differences between the House and the Senate. We have some committees that they don't from a policy standpoint. So no. The idea of unicameral died with Governor Ventura.
Are you all concerned about with fewer committees having less time to get in depth on some policy areas or tackle some
I think it's going to allow for more time. When I think about the committees that I served on for the last 4 years, my schedule was full, and it allowed for very little time with my constituents. It allowed for very little time, with concerned parties to be able to come in, meet with me, talk about the issues more in depth. So I think this is going to be very useful, particularly with some of our newer members. They're going to have more time and more time for their constituents.
How many employees do you folks have in the House and the Senate? Total employees?
We're still figuring it out.
Right. Bipartisan or nonpartisan staff.
Total employees. You don't know?
No, I mean, we could, I think because especially because some of them, it's hard to say because some of them, the place works on FTEs, full-time employees, and we don't have all the FTEs, even in the minority, we haven't had all of our FTEs fully filled, so to speak, so it'd be we could give you the number that the books say, but because we've been doing salary savings, because we've been doing session-only research, session-only staff, session-only media guys, which, no offense, it's a dangerous thing when you're working with you guys, but we've had that many session-only stuff, so we don't, we might have a full complement number, but we don't have the number of folks that actually show up every day and are working full-time.
Do you have a goal for the percentage of people or positions you'd like to cut?
I don't think you draw a line and say, okay, we're cutting everything, to this number. It's a matter of what works best between the two bodies, what works best for us so we get the full job done, but we don't have a bunch of extra positions that are going to waste time and money that the taxpayers send down here to us.
Right, the goal was smaller, simpler, user-friendly. There was no number.
Will you be cutting per diem and expenses, as many have complained about over the last few years?
Well,
Right. I mean, I think that just even by the fewer numbers of committees, you're going to see reduction in the number of per diem days taken, I suspect. That's a little hard to quantify, Pat, but yes, you've got to be an assumption.
You have
jobs committees. Merging of services between the House and Senate, if you're doing duplicate things now, and staff is doing duplicate things, will you be merging that? Will you be doing anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, as long as we're making sure that the voters who are sending us down here getting whether it be the right forms, whether it be the information, whether it be the hearing request, whatever it is, if we can share those services, absolutely. I mean, again, our goal is to do what a lot of Minnesota families have had to have done, Minnesota business owners have had to do over the last 3 to 5 years, and that's make our do what we've done here a little bit better, a little more efficient, and a little bit leaner.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what you envision for the jobs committees in the House and Senate.
Great. Well, I think that there's going to be some discussion, and a bigger part of it is going to be in the state government innovation. We're talking about streamlining, reducing regulation. That was something that was a big part of our agenda as well. We were running for office. So I think you're going to see some, and that's going to help with the budget, but it also helps in the jobs arena. I think that there's going to be discussions about tax policy. There's going to be discussions on, we went around and talked to the businesses, is what we've done, and we're going to take those suggestions and we're going to move forward and bring that into legislation.
Yeah. When you look at, you ask a local business owner, how do we compare to not just the Dakotas or Wisconsin, but how do we compare to what Texas is doing? Why do we have these job centers down in Austin that are pulling from our Minnesota companies? What is it that we can do? Because if we level the playing field, if everything's the same in North Carolina as it is in Minnesota or in Alabama, our business owners, the men and women who actually build the products, provide the services, will win. That's our faith is in our business women and men around the state, not in the regulatory policy. So if we can level the playing field and make everything the same, relatively speaking, we're not going to go backwards in time and make it, undo some of the regulatory burdens or the regulatory things that keep it a fair playing field. But if we're doing things above and beyond, on top of what, in some cases, Senator Bach discussed. One of the forums we had recently, we're testing for something that costs hundreds of millions of dollars that has nothing to do with Minnesota water. It's stuff like that we're doing here because that's the way we've always done it, that we think we need to do it again. We're going to look at it from that standpoint, from the job provider. But then also, so that again, we're competitive in a global, we have a lot of our agricultural products are going to, halfway around the world. So we're competing not just against the Dakotas and the Carolinas and Texas, we're competing around the world. So it has to be, we have to start local and then we have to think global.
Right. Kurt always talks about we need to go to Sioux Falls, and he and I will cut a commercial about businesses coming back to Minnesota.
Yeah.
If you are so perfectly aligned, not to go back to the unicameral comment, but where are your differences going to be? What are going to be the distinctive roles that the Senate plays versus the House in terms of getting a good piece of legislation to a governor's desk?
Right. Good cop, bad cop? I mean, there will be some interplay, and I don't think that we're going to agree on everything. They're going to come forward with some different ideas. We're going to have different ideas. Besides their decided lack of dress code in the House, there's going to be other differences.
I'm not wearing any sweaters. No sweaters.
Do you anticipate now where that might be? Is it going to be in terms of policy? Is it going to be in terms of procedure? Or is it going to be in terms of timing?
I think it's a little column A, column B, and column C. I think in broad, we have broad agreement on the big stuff, on the principles, and that'll be our guide. That'll be the unifying. The rest of it will fall into place because we'll keep an eye on that.
Will you have a timing procedure? There was a governor once who said that he wanted all budget bills to him before he had a tax bill. Mm-hmm. Do you have ways of dealing with that already?
I don't think so. And to your earlier question, if you've been around here, we have 201 type A personalities. Not everybody in here is willing to say, oh, well, sure, I'll defer to Senator Michelle or Senator Koch or Representative Dean. So there's going to be differences just in the personalities. And then you add in the fact that we have all these freshmen who, in some cases, have never run for office, never been elected to anything before, but have come in with a fresh perspective that says, this is the way I do it in my business. Why aren't you guys doing this? This would drive some of our newly elected reps crazy. And looking at that over there, when we went through this with some of them, that makes all the sense in the world. So I think from that perspective, that's what we're looking at. Is that there's going to be differences, and some people bring life experiences in that none of us have ever had because we haven't worked in the industry or worked in an area. I think that probably more than anything will dictate how we disagree or agree on bills, and then the authors of bills. I mean, two different people carry the bill in both bodies. How the author presents the bill, the witnesses they may bring in, whatever it may be to testify, how they drafted the bill, maybe differently, and that's a good thing. Different isn't always a bad thing. We've seen that. You get a better product that way, and the most important thing from us, though, when you look at the structure, is that the tax committee in the House doesn't meet the same time as the tax committee in the Senate. So that when those bills are separate, that people can come in and participate in their government and not have to worry about trying to find the building, trying to find the time. It's going to be easier for them. It's not going to conflict with each other.
How do you envision the committees balancing the new policy and budget responsibilities? Do you take care of policy issues early and then concentrate on the budget, or what?
I don't know that that's going to be, that's really been something, as I stated before, the policy and budget have been somewhat intertwined anyway, and there's been discussions on the floor of budget bills that included policy, and is that right? A lot of policy decisions can't be made in a vacuum without discussions of budget. So I think there's a natural they're together anyway in the discussions, and they always have been, and I don't think that's going to change just because we've put some of the committees together. It's actually more natural that way.
Do you see large omnibus bills like we've had in the past, or would you see more bills moving on their own?
I think in some cases, the bill's going to dictate that. When it comes to HHS, there's so many different moving pieces, parts, financing. I mean, that's why I turn my brain over to Matt when it comes to healthcare stuff. He does all the thinking for me. But there are certain bills that are going to be able to move independently and get done and get through the process very quickly. Others that are just, when you spend that much amount of money and have that many policy decisions made within a bill, it's just it dictates that you're going to have a little bit bigger, bigger slice of the pie when it comes to passing a bill.
And I think this structure has made it more difficult to track the omnibus bills, because then pieces have to be broken up, or it has to be tracked to this committee or that committee. I think this is going to make it much easier to track whichever bill is moving through the committee process.
And just one of the things that you'll notice is that there is separated. HHS and education, for example, have policy committees just because it makes sense, because there's a lot of bills that would naturally process through that way. And what you'll see, I think, in terms of what was called garbage bills that get assembled and quickly moved through the committee process and maybe don't have the proper hearings, this process will lend itself towards a cleaner, more transparent flow of bills that matches the agenda as we lay it out.
Well, and Don, one more kind of echoed response to your question. Senator Koch has asked us to look at the Senate rules and how we conduct ourselves. 2 a.m. meetings, we don't want to do that. 200-page bills without any kind of notice or online posting, we don't want to do that. So, yeah, there's a whole nother level of how we run ourselves, how we run these institutions procedurally that we will get to. But to presume that we've got this all baked for you today is wrong, and would be terribly dangerous for us, because we have 37 members who are very eager to get into the details with us, and we need their help, and we're looking forward to that discussion too.
Can you talk about what this means for the public consumption of the legislative process beyond maybe being easier to go to a committee? Does this also mean more meetings will be televised statewide too? More people will actually be able to watch the process?
Yeah, it's a great idea, especially for those on TV. No, that was one of our main goals in this, is so that when people come down, and not just the kids that come down in the buses that you see running up the stairs, but we talked to a number of business owners that have had something that comes up, and they said, but for this bill coming up, I've never been a part of my government before, been down at the Capitol to watch a bill become a law or watch the process. It's a catchy tune. Is that Andy Griffith? But it allows then for not only to plan out and to allow the planning. Again, if you've got 15 different committees, you may only hear one iteration of the bill over here. Oh, but don't worry, if I've heard this once, heard it 100 times, don't worry, it'll change once it goes to the full committee. That, especially in the policy division. So you'll be able to see the bill as it's coming through the process, and if it takes more than a day in a committee to hear it, I think that's better than sorting it out and putting it in, from fourth floor in one of the half committee rooms to down to second floor where it's in room 200. From our standpoint, it'll be a lot more transparent, but again, so that folks can participate, whether they want to or not, that's their choice, but at least they know how, and it'll be a lot easier and more transparent.
Will you continue to pay to have these committees and the sessions televised?
Well, it depends on how much it costs. I mean, in some cases, if there's it's the main committees, the finance, the taxes, the ways and means, I think those are incumbent upon us because that's where the bulk of the work, the policy, taxes, but that's something we haven't talked about.
And there's other media. I mean,
look at this.
There's internet.
Look at how we had to go through to untangle to get to that. We got the untangling done. We'll work on the rest of it very quickly, though. Right?
Thanks. All right. Thanks.
Roughly, how many committees does a typical legislator serve on, and what will this reduce to? Do you know?
Well, say 3 to 4 is kind of the goal. In the past,
That's the goal?
Well, that's generally in the Senate. That would be the goal. I was on 5, 6 last year. So, or in the last 4 years.
5 or 6.
It was heavy loads. I literally had only lunch to meet with constituents from 12 to 12:30.
Yeah.
So.
Slide right.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Good job.